Good morning, welcome back to my channel. So today's topic is a little bit heavy, well not a little bit, a lot heavy, but it's important, and I've kind of been stalling about talking about it, but it's important part of my story, so I'm gonna try to get it out today. Okay, so the topic is gonna be about SA and how that affected me at being the scapegoated child in my family. When you're the scapegoat, you're not protected. So any predators in that environment, anybody with a bad intention will seek out the child that's not protected, the child that they have the greatest chance of getting away with violating. So I felt the common theme when I was around my father and his family, his wife's family, is that I was being sexualized by them. And I say this because the names that were being used to call me and things, that I heard, especially with those recordings that my dad said he heard, where I was being referred to as a little whore. So I can only assume that these are conversations that they were having amongst themselves in front of other people. The person who targeted me for that type of abuse was my stepmother's nephew. And at the time when it started, I was around 5 or 6, and he would have been in his late teens, so about 17, 18 at the time. So I didn't see this person often, and but whenever I did see this person, this is something that they would do to me. I never told anyone because I just knew that I wouldn't be believed. And I was afraid I would get in trouble. I mean, there were just so many thoughts that went in my mind through it. And I'm not going to talk in depth about that because there's a dynamic involved with that situation that I want to go more into, but I'm saving that for a different venue platform. But just kind of briefly about it, I was afraid to say anything, and for justified reasons. So when I got pregnant at 15 years old, and because I was so young, in Toronto at that time, they had like this place for teenage moms that you would go to get support. And through that program, I had a counselor, and part of the questions that they would ask you is if you were ever a victim of that type of an assault. And I disclosed then that I was, and I told them about what happened to me, and I also let them know that I did not tell anybody. So part of the healing from that trauma was to tell my parents about what happened to me. So I told my mom first, and my mom, she was very angry, and I begged her not to say anything because I did not want her response. I was, like, my mom's response was to kind of want to be violent, and that's not what I was looking for at that time. I just wanted to unburden myself. Carrying around that type of a secret was very heavy. So I just wanted not to carry it anymore. I wanted my parents to know, but I wasn't looking for any kind of action behind it, like, because, by the time I told, so many years had gone by. I mean, I just didn't want to cause any problems. I just wanted to unburden myself with it. So I told my father about what took place what took place when I was younger, and who the perpetrator was his wife's nephew. And he listened, and then I guess he went home to his wife and told her. And I immediately found out that she called me a liar, and she wanted proof that this happened. And my father's reaction to that was to tell me that he wanted me to go to the police, which I said I refused to do. I didn't want to expose myself to all of that, and I didn't feel like I needed to prove anything to anybody. You know, rationally, the dynamic involved, he was a teenager at the time. I was a young child. I didn't think that the police were going to be able to do anything, and I didn't want to be a part of that type of an investigation at the time. And I was pregnant, so it wasn't. I didn't tell him for that. I told him because, again, I wanted to unburden myself. I thought he should know because this person was still around the family, and I thought that he should know. So because I refused to go to the police, my father's reaction to this was to tell me, "Don't ever bring this up again unless you're willing to prove it." So, I never brought it up again. And again, I was still, and it's going to sound crazy, but I would still go around his family. I would go to his house for special events or Christmas or whatever it was. And what his wife would do is intentionally invite the person that I said had assaulted me just to make me uncomfortable. She would do this. And so this went on for a couple of years, I would say, or maybe a couple events. And then my father, so I think deep down, my father knew something happened, right? He knew I wasn't lying, but he didn't have the courage enough to confront his wife or whatever it was. I was already scapegoated in the family. So when you're scapegoat, you're labeled a liar. And so everybody, just was okay with calling me a liar and making me out to be a bad person for even telling anybody that had happened to me. But I think over time, my father understood that something did happen. And even though he didn't have the courage enough to stand up for me and defend me, he did eventually tell his wife that I don't know what happened, but I know something happened and I don't want him in my house. And so that at least stopped happening. But his wife and her family members probably to this day still call me a liar for that situation. And my understanding, apparently they said I will never be forgiven for trying to ruin somebody's life by disclosing that. But I think deep down they know that I'm not lying. There'd be no incentive or reason to lie about something like that, especially this particular person, because this person was so irrelevant to the family. Nobody would ever even have thought about him. I could have accused my father, I could have accused uncles, people who were very present and around more often than this person was. So I think they know I'm not lying, but either way, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I have moved on from that. I have unburdened myself from that baggage, and that is something that they should have to sit around and look at each other and process how they dealt with that. That's not my burden to carry. But I guess the point of my video today is to talk about the fact that when you are scapegoating a child, you are setting that child up to be victimized and to be preyed upon by people who are looking for victims to essay, to assault. And because the child is the scapegoated child, if they tell anybody, who's going to believe them? So, I just want to say that I was so young. I started talking about this. I was a teenager. So at this point in my life, I don't know if you can ever fully recover from something like that, but I'm recovered enough that I navigate my life without being burdened with the thought of that. But I wanted to talk about it today. And so yeah, if I think about anything else related to that situation, I might bring it up again, but I think that is it on that topic. I will move on. Yeah, thanks for listening. Have a great day.